here. Just when I think it gets stranger that I turned 48, this week, and I'm about to celebrate 25 years on Baltimore radio on December 13th. Mark Trestman gets fired at 9:33 in the morning on Monday. The Ravens somehow lose to the Redskins. It's the second time now the Ravens have lost to the Redskins, second time in a row, and they fired the offensive coordinator before 10 a.m. the next morning. We also had Buck Showalter as the village idiot last week, and Ubaldo Jimenez as the Oriole GOAT. And I thought it a great time to bring this guy in. I didn't know that Mark Trestman would no longer be the offensive coordinator of the Ravens when we booked Mark Messina onto the program. Many of you young old-timers remember Mark's days on the radio here in Baltimore. I always like to say Mark's the greatest sports radio show host that never did sports radio, except for a very, very short stint here. You missed your calling, Messina. I know you're making movies now and raising kids and hanging out with your brother up on the farm in Montoursville, but you did miss your calling. I mean, if it weren't for you to do sports radio, you could have probably been the offensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys or something.
Well, apparently I could be the offensive coordinator of the Ravens. That's what. They already hired someone.
Yeah, Marty Morningweg's going to take care of that for you. He's got a little more experience than you.
That's all right. Experiences, as John Wooden said, I'd rather have talent over experience any day.
Well, you know what? If you're quoting Wooden here today, then it is a good time. What do you want? Do you want some Mark Trestman? Do you want some Cowboys? Or do you want to start with Buck Showalter? Let's do this. Let's start with Buck Showalter, and we'll get to Trestman, and we'll get to how your brother's doing and the Yankees and the Orioles and all that. But the Showalter thing, I know you follow baseball as closely as anyone. I know you have an affinity for Buck. You have an affinity for the Orioles organization as well as the Yankees. But when you saw this happen in real time in the 11th inning, that they're going with Ubaldo Jimenez, you said what, Mark Messina?
Well, I have a good friend up here who is a diehard Oriole fan. And we were talking earlier in the day, and he said, we were talking about Tillman going to the mound, we were talking about, being on the road in Toronto and all the matchup stuff. And he said, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but the hottest pitcher we have right now isn't Tillman, it's Ubaldo. So
I don't think Ubaldo works well in 48,000 people with the bright lights. I think that's part of the issue. And it is different,
I get that. And in the hindsight, it's obviously easy taking anybody out. But earlier in the day, you wouldn't have thought, at least, it's so hindsight-ish that you had no idea the way Ubaldo pitched down the stretch that he was going to implode and he was going to be as bad as he was. The thing, the funny aspect that
But when you have no tightrope, you only have to be bad once when there's no tightrope, right? It's different in the first inning of a Tuesday night game in Minnesota where if you give up a 2-run home run, you shake it off, you pitch 6 good innings, they forget about it, Davis hits a homer, Trumbo hits 2, and you win 7-4, and it's forgotten. It's a whole different game when, you have no tightrope and you're giving the ball to Ubaldo Jimenez, who needs a tightrope, right? If there's nothing else we know, his tightrope needs to be, wide, like a shelf, Well,
I get it. And obviously Buck's going to take heat for it, and because, as you know from the sports world, whatever you do, if it doesn't work out,
it's the wrong move.
It's the wrong thing. You take it to football, when you get late in the game, and people say, and you're losing, you need the ball back, and people say, should you go onside kick or should you kick it deep and you got to stop them once? Well, if you kick it deep and then they try to pick up a first down, then everyone says, well, we should onside kick. So whatever you do, if it doesn't work out, if they bring in Britton and he throws up zeros for 2 innings, then somebody's got to come in after him. And
that somebody could have been Jimenez, it could have been Bundy, it could have been the 15th inning, but I don't know that. How do you walk back in? How does Buck walk in and look at guys like your brother and like J.J. Hardy and like Adam Jones and Zach Britton and say, that was my best decision. That was the way I wanted to play it. And the guys that wanted to win, your brother never got a ring. It would have been a chance for him had he been alive. I find it a fascinating culture after the fact as to what Buck has to go through with his own players. How does Buck work this out with Zach Britton moving forward? I think that's a fascinating, because you can't, look, it's over with. We're going to second guess, we're going to judge it. What happens now when Buck has to take the elevator to the top floor and see the funny little weird old guy and the two kids who know more about baseball than he does, obviously. He sat with them before, and they tell him what he did wrong. I mean, how does this settle over the next 6 months? Because I want to know how you rebound from this, because short of winning and going to a World Series, this is Buck's last act for now, right? For the next 11 months.
Well, yeah. Well, not 11 months, but yeah. But in American League, well, in all of baseball, in Major League Baseball, when you watch from April through September, the home team will bring in their closer in a tie game because he can't get a save opportunity. The road team doesn't bring in their closer in extra innings until they get a lead. That's how they play it all season. So it's not like, and the people who want to say, well, if you're in a one-and-done situation in today's elimination, you should play it differently.
Well, it is a different game. And look, we sat here all day Monday and Tuesday talking about how weird the wild card game is. I mean, how truly unique, even unique because it's not really like a Game 7, because in Game 7 you use guys in Game 6 and 5. This is a rested team theoretically, right?
It is. It is a different game. The thing that I find unfair to Buck is people say, once you got to extra, you should have brought him in the 11th. Well, if that's your argument, shouldn't you have brought him in the 9th?
Right.
So if you bring him in, if Britton pitches the 9th and Britton pitches the 10th, you're still in the 11th anyway because the Orioles couldn't hit. So now,
now you just brought that up, and it took us 7 minutes to bring up the fact that they didn't hit, right? So unless they got a hit, they could have been playing there all night, and Walter Johnson could have been pitching, Cy Young, right, or Spahn, whomever, right?
Right.
So keep going.
I remember when back in the '97 or whatever it was when Mike pitched against Charles Nagy in Game 6 at home, we lost 1-0, and I think the Orioles had 9 or 10 hits and hit into a bunch of double plays, and they blamed Davey Johnson because we didn't run enough, and it was if whatever you do doesn't work, everyone's going to blame and say that. And they got 4 hits in 11 innings. Wasn't that the final? Didn't they have 2 runs on 4 hits?
Yes.
So 4 hits in 11 innings isn't going to win you a lot of games. So if you're going to to blame the man, if he'd have brought in Britton, here would have been the other interesting thing. What if he brings in Britton and Britton gives up a run? And then everyone says, well, you never bring in the closer unless it's because closers always pitch better in closer situations than they do.
I don't think I would have been a guy saying you should have brought Jimenez in. I just have seen too much. As a matter of fact, I went on Toronto radio and Ottawa radio on Monday after the announcement was made of who was starting, right? I mean, because there was some conjecture that it might have been Liriano or it might have been Jimenez, and Liriano certainly had fared better against it. There was an argument both ways, and we made those baseball arguments. One of the arguments I made to the Canadian sports radio guys, and I did air it here at WNST, was how do you look Adam Jones, J.J. Hardy, Matt Wieters, your guys, your owner, your fans, the people you answer to, how do you look them in the eye when you give the ball to Ubaldo Jimenez, knowing all that we know, and say, I'm putting my faith, my life, my trust, my season in the hands of Ubaldo Jimenez? I don't know that you could come back on Wednesday morning if he goes out there and gives up 5 runs in the first 3 innings and you get behind as a starting pitcher. I don't know that you really could talk your way backwards from that. And lo and behold, at midnight on Tuesday night, we're sitting here talking about how not only did he not pick, he picked Tillman over Jimenez, then he picked Jimenez over Britton, which, especially once you got base runners there, Moose, you know what I mean? I see the validity of we don't go to him, and I know he had been up a couple of times. I mean, my first phone call was to Greg Olson, right? I mean, and Otter came on for half an hour last week and talked about exactly what you're talking about, which is Otter's like, for all the years I was a closer in baseball on the road, I never did that job. One time I got up, he said, one time Chicago, Minnesota, someplace, he said, one time I got up 4 times, and I finally got into the game and I had nothing 2-0, and I lost the game in like the 15th inning because I had warmed up 4 times and threw it all out in the bullpen. So there's all of these stories that only pitchers know, right? And you having lived your life amongst, a Hall of Fame pitcher, at least he's in my Hall of Fame, bro. If they move Cooperstown to Mentorsville, I'll let you know. But your brother should be in the Hall of Fame. I like saying that to you because I don't talk to you often enough. But to me, the Jimenez thing is a cautionary tale. You have 3 years of the body of work. You just can't let that be the guy standing on the mound costing you your season. I find that to really be unfathomable. I really do. And I bet Mr. Angelos feels somewhat like I feel.
Well, I think the double-edged sword of it is, as you said, that Britton has the greatest year of any closer's ever had and probably should win the Cy Young. And on the flip side, it's, Ubaldo has been such a
enigma.
Interesting figure. Enigma is a good way to describe it. I was trying to come up with a good word.
Well, the word they used for me at the Sun when I was 17 was exasperating,
There you go.
Intensely irritating and infuriating. Yes, exasperating.
If he'd been a consistent 17, 18-game winner for the Orioles, and you choose him over Britton, and you say, well, because they were on the road and because he's the closer and all that, it's different. You bring it. It'd be almost like bringing an Armando Benitez in front of it. It's like, wait a minute, we've seen this go badly so many times, and that adds to the soap opera of what Buck is going to deal with. But in all honesty, when Ubaldo walked in, not to start the inning because there was already 1 out. When Ubaldo came in with 1 out, nobody on, I wasn't shocked. When it was over in about 4 pitches, then I was shocked. But I didn't, and the other thing I'm thinking is, if this game goes 16 innings, Ubaldo can give you length, and you're not going to run out of pitchers to the point that Chris Davis is coming in out of the pen in the 7th.
I just didn't see any way Jimenez was going to pitch his way out of trouble in that environment. You know what I mean? On a sleepy 48-degree night in Cleveland when nobody's watching, maybe. I
get your point.
I just think there are guys that can play for a big crowd and there are guys that can't. I don't know what that means, and I think part of that is the Carl Crawford Boston thing and the Adrian Gonzalez feeling comfortable in certain places and not other places. And your brother never thought he'd feel comfortable in New York and went up there and loved it. So you never know what that environment's going to do. It brought out the best in your brother. It brought out the best in Kurt Schilling, right? It does not bring out the best in Ubaldo Jimenez.
Well, I just wondered too, if I was sitting in Pickles Pub at the beginning of the bottom of the 9th, was everyone in the bar screaming, why isn't Britton in? At the beginning of the 10th, were people screaming, why isn't Britton in? At the beginning of the 11th.
I think people were saying, you're going to let Brian Dunsing give up a home run to Encarnacion? I mean...
But it worked. But Brian Dunsing got the out. So the question, it's easy for everyone to stand up. And this is what sports are all about. That everyone stands up now and says, we knew Ubaldo was going to blow it. But when you brought him in, did all these people stand up and scream? Or did they say, okay, the first thing I thought when Ubaldo came in was length. That he can give you length because it looks for all intents and purposes like the Orioles aren't going to score anytime soon. And that was the first thing that I thought.
But as you grind into the bullpen, the opportunities get greater, right? I mean, you're getting lesser pitchers, theoretically, and someone could make a mistake. And certainly throughout the Orioles lineup, I mean, let's be honest, man. You've watched this a long time. Why would anyone throw most of the Orioles hitters a strike or anything close to being a strike? I mean,
they do swing a lot. I'll give you that.
I mean, you didn't need to make good pitches to get them out. You just needed to throw the ball.
Well, I mean, if I'm going to summarize, and I know this game is, the one game, and it has certainly made for hot stove talk. People will still, you'll walk up to people in February and say, can you believe Britton didn't pitch in that game? And that's what's going to happen. It'll be good for Oriole baseball.
But that's what I'm saying about Buck. And I don't say can Buck survive this or whatever. I mean, Buck is like a termite. He's going to be here long after we're all gone. I mean, and I don't think. But I think that there is now friction. There is now, he could do no wrong we had no post-game conversations around here about the idiot manager, really, until Wade Miley, cost them home field advantage on the Saturday night. And then on Wednesday morning, we're sitting around here and they're packing their bags and playing golf because Ubaldo Jimenez gave up a jack in extra innings in a winner-take-all game in Toronto against some of the most feared hitters in baseball. I mean, I think that's a hard sell, man. I mean, it's the hardest of hard sell. Name me a circumstance that would have been worse for Buck and for the organization than this. What's Britton giving up the home run? Well, at least you'd say, well, he hadn't done it all year. They were due, and he is a big hitter, and he did hit 40 home runs this year. Okay, I tip my cap, but against a guy that we didn't even want on the team 6 weeks before. Oh boy, I mean, boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Here's my defensive Buck, and I'm not going to defend you because you certainly, you wouldn't want if you're the Red Sox, you don't want David Ortiz. You don't want to lose, a deciding game and never send David Ortiz to bat. So the Orioles, I understand the general principle.
Are you saying that I'm making sense, Messina?
Well, but here's my defensive Buck. When I look at this Oriole team throughout they weren't that good. And whether they weren't that good or they didn't play that well, Chris Davis hit 222. Wieters did not have a great offensive year. Their pitching staff was blah. Like, other than Britt having just the greatest year, and I firmly believe that the Cy Young Award is a starter's award, but Britton should win it anyway. Other than him, like, Machado was really good. Scope was really good for what he is. But as a team, they were like, you look at what Boston's done, and you look at, Texas just fell apart. But you look at what the Cubs are. You even look at what the Nationals are. Like, the Orioles, they just, pitching-wise, you kind of waited and waited and waited for this team to fall apart. I think for them to make the wild card and to be as competitive as they were, as long as they were, I think they had a good year.
With a beer league softball team where a lot of things worked out right. I mean, Trumbo could not have worked out any better. Alvarez worked out pretty well. Kim worked out pretty well. I mean, the guys that didn't work out well were guys like Davis and Wieters that we sat here this time last year waving them bye-bye, and they came back. I mean, and the old man gave a lot of money away to do that, $180 million between the two of them.
Yeah, I forgot about Trumbo. I can't believe I left Trumbo out of the list of Trumbo and Britton. But, all things considered, since they made the playoffs, it says the Orioles are one of the top 10 teams in baseball. That's probably, for them to make that is pretty good. If you would have looked at this roster at the beginning of the year and said, this is our starting staff, we're going down the stretch with Wade Miley in the rotation, that's kind of sketchy. And the fact that they got in and Justin Verlander, Miguel Cabrera, and Victor Martinez, and they didn't get in, like to not lose the forest for the trees, the Orioles ended up having a pretty good season. It ended in I really do. I think it will help the way it ended. I think it will keep Baltimore Oriole discussion going, even if it's negative, even if it's still what the hell did we do. But it was an overachieving year, I think, and it ended theatrically and tragically, but it was still a better year than I think they should have had and what I expected them to have.
He is Mark Messina. He is our old host here at WNST. It was 2 decades ago that Moose moved onto my couch for a period of time on Kane Street, and we did sports radio together. He's up in Montoursville, Pennsylvania, writing scripts, making movies, mentoring, coaching. You are the assistant to the assistant coach of your brother's basketball team, correct?
I am the JV. Yes, I'm the head JV coach, and
how's that going? Is that going better or worse than Rex and Rob Ryan? And they've had a good week.
Well, it mostly goes well. It's just, you could imagine, and not that, just use Cal Ripken. Say Cal Ripken is a coach of anything, whether it's a business, whether it's a coach, whatever. There are very few people who would be willing to go up to him and say, dude, that's wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. We need to move the infield up here, not play the infield back. So when you think of it, how many people would have the guts to go up and tell Cal Ripken he's doing it wrong? Well, probably Billy. would be about,
Maybe Vi.
And why exactly? And that's really what. So there's it comes to, that like that's my role, because Mike's a smart guy and he likes sports, he knows sports, but he doesn't always have the answers. And as a head coach of any sport, you can only see so much, and there has to be somebody else who's willing to say, hey, he's got to come out of the game. We got to get him in the game. You've got, and that's me. And sometimes it ruffles feathers because, he's not used to having people tell him they disagree. But, if there was another professional athlete on the bench with him, then it would, then there would go back and forth and back and forth. But in his world for all these years, I'm the Billy Ripken to his Cal, and that's my role, and it mostly works out because we have the same goals and we're going in the same direction. But sometimes it gets a little heated. But that's it's like coaching with your brother. It's doing anything with your brother. You have discussions with him that you don't have with anyone else.
Well, I'm thinking of Rowdy Roddy Piper's quote here. Just when you think you have all the answers, I change the questions. Right. So is that's your role, right?
I get Rowdy Roddy. What a classic. But it's. But we're trying, and it's interesting. It's an interesting world, whatever level, as people think they can coach and people think they, whatever you watch of sports, it's just dealing with the kids and dealing with the personalities, and how many times after the games, I would love to sit with any in any sport, whether it's Buck, whether it's Harbaugh, whether it's Mike Krzyzewski, after a win or a loss, and say, we should have got this guy more time. We should have got this guy less. I forgot that I wanted to do this. I really wanted to work it in, and I did. And what are we going to do tomorrow? And this guy seems unhappy, and what can we do to get him going? Even though we won, this guy over here is playing like crap. And how do we fix that? And win or lose, there's just fascinating psychological discussions because you're dealing with people, and what are the right buttons to push to get all the people to perform at their optimum level, because they're all wired differently. And so it's an ongoing challenge.
I'm aware of that. I ran a radio station for 2 decades. It was very much like that.
Exactly. It was, yes, just like running a business. And how do you get the most out of, getting the most out of this guy is different from getting the most out of this guy. You just got to show up and open the door and turn the lights on. But then there's this other guy that you got to do this and you got to do that. And when you're in charge, that's, your job is to get the most out of everyone. So, and of course, with sports and whatever, it helps when you have talent, and we should have talent this year. So it's
always helps.
Fun, but it does.
As smart as you are, you need the horses for the courses, as they say. Mark Messina here. All right, so let's get on to Tressman, and let's get on to the NFL, because we've done enough baseball here. We all know you're a Cowboy guy. And first off, a guy named Dak. What are the chances that guy could play quarterback? Let's be honest.
We are. What's beautiful about the whole situation is I heard the Cowboys were all set to take Connor Cook in whatever round. And someone traded up and got him in front of him. The 7th quarterback taken, and the Cowboys were like, oh, great, who's the 8th quarterback on our list? Dak? Okay, take him then. And he just falls into their lap, and, Jared Goff can't get a sniff, and he's the number 1 pick overall. And the 8th quarterback taken is out of Mississippi State, and he's playing really well. So it's, but if you watch, and, you're watching, the Ravens every week, when you watch the Cowboys play, they can block. Their front 5 is solid.
And they're running the ball. They're just like Emmitt Smithing it, right?
At every level of football, if you can block, you can do things on offense. And that's what they have a very, very good front 5. So, and now defensively, we've got a lot of guys out of jail or wherever they were, and probation, suspension, whatever, and we really.
But it is the Cowboys world. We all know what that star stands for.
It is.
Star stands for the next policeman that's going to arrest somebody there.
As long as we can keep them through like mid-February, we're legit. And what's going to be the fun NFL soap opera is what happens when Romo declares I'm fit to go. And as long as Dak is still fit to go, then that's going to be fun.
We're not having any fun here. We lost to the Redskins on Sunday, Moose, and 9:33 a.m. we sent the WNST text, courtesy of Coons Ford Security Boulevard. If you're on our text service, you know you got it first. Mark Tressman fired. Marty Morningwing up. I know you watch the Ravens from afar, But this is a fascinating, fire the pitching coach, fire the hitting coach, fire the coordinator, do it in week 5. Do you wait to the bye week? The Ravens are going to play in the woeful Giants, who we saw couldn't get out of their own way on Sunday night. And then they have the Jets. They have 2 straight train rides up to MetLife Stadium in New Jersey the next 2 weekends. And, these are wounded creatures the Ravens are playing, and the Ravens, quite frankly, lost by a point last week under some weird circumstances. And, C.J. Mosley came 6 inches away from winning the game on Sunday. A special teams breakdown, 1 foot for Perryman. But the thing about the offense is they were running the ball, and then they just stopped running the football and didn't touch the football a whole lot in the second half. It was curious to everyone, and the locker room was a mess after the game.
Yeah, and the Ravens have been an interesting year. And obviously everyone who follows the Ravens, when they looked at their schedule and saw, how they end their last 4 games with their, at New England, at Cincinnati, at Pittsburgh.
It is a little backloaded, I would agree.
It is backloaded, and they knew they had to do damage at the beginning of the schedule. And they started out 3-0, everyone was happy. But when you look at this, there's no team in the NFL that probably could be 5-0 or 0-5 like the Ravens. And, when you look at their 3-0, it was very deceptive because they probably should have lost in Cleveland. They almost lost in Jacksonville. This is kind of, I'm surprised that Trestman got fired, but I'm not surprised that Trestman got fired because they know, as you said, Giants coming up, Jets coming up, they don't have time to wait. They have to make hay now. If they had New England coming up, maybe they'd let them go, but they have to get through this soft part of their schedule, or the softer part of their schedule, and they got to win some games if they want any hope. But when I looked at the season before, the schedule before the season started, I thought that the Ravens were a decent team, and they had a lot better chance of not making the playoffs than making the playoffs.
But if you would have told me that Suggs would have been okay, Smith would have been okay, Pitta was going to be okay, Flacco was going to be okay. If you give me those guys and say, not only are they going to get back on the field, but they're going to, look like some semblance of what you remember them being. And, Suggs is every other play, and that's probably what we expected anyway. But it's not like he's completely washed up and can't play. It's certainly that's not the case of Steve Smith, who, hobbled off, and, we'll see how the ankle thing works for him this week. But they've had a lot of wonderful surprises, quite frankly, whether it's, the fact that Terrence West can run the ball and they have 2 or 3 running backs that they like enough to get rid of Justin Forsett, and that they have a very healthy version of Joe Flacco. But there are other problems here. Getting to the quarterback's a problem. The offensive line is in tatters and moving parts, and now Wagner's hurt. Stanley they're trying to get back. They got these young guys. They're trying to get him in and find some level of success. I think they're going to run the ball and run the ball and run the ball more. And if they lose these next 2 games by running the ball, then fair enough. But I think that's what they're going to want to do up there these next 2 weeks.
Well, and it's also interesting to say that the offensive line's in tatters and we're going to run the ball. That kind of goes
well,
against
it beats getting your quarterback annihilated now.
But, yes, and it is. And it's one of those, as I said before when I was talking about the Cowboys and how well they run it, if you can block, you can do a lot of things on offense. If you can't block, you can't do a lot of things. So it's a little fascinating to see their rush totals and how they did go away from, how they went away from the passing game the way they did. But when you look around, talent for talent, and Joe Flacco's a good NFL quarterback, but when anyone's talking about the elite quarterbacks of the Bradys and Aaron Rodgers and what Drew Brees used to be and what Roethlisberger is, Flacco doesn't make his way into that argument. When you look at the Steelers, you talk about Antonio Brown, you talk about the Bengals, you talk about A.J. Green. The Ravens don't have those weapons. So when you have a compilation of offensive guys who are all somewhere between decent and pretty good, then your team is going to be somewhere between decent and pretty good. So they lack. They just lack greatness on offense, I think. I think they have a bunch of pretty good players. But when you look at the elite teams in the NFL, you can point and say they are great. When you go to New England, Tom Brady is as good of a quarterback as maybe we've ever seen. Right now, you don't go to anywhere on the Ravens offense and say, this guy is a great... Steve Smith was for his career, and he's a Hall of Famer. But that's kind of what they lack. They're good or pretty good, and that's kind of what I expect them to be. And I think they'll be somewhere around, 7-9, 8-8. They're not bad, but there's just nothing great about this group, and that's where you end up in the middle of the pack.
All right, man. We will see the Dallas Cowboys in late November. We'll see if I can wreck your pumpkin pie the Sunday before Thanksgiving. Okay.
See, fortunately for you, historically speaking, the Cowboys are really good in September, October. As the season gets later is when we get worse. So you're getting us at the right time.
Yeah, maybe we could tag one on them 4 days before Thanksgiving and give them a little RA on the short week. Who do the Cowboys play on Thanksgiving this year?
The Redskins.
Oh, so you get a bye week that week.
Maybe
I shouldn't say that. We just lost to them.
Maybe you guys should all travel out together. The Redskins can go a couple days. Actually, I don't know who they play.
I tell you what, the only good thing I can find about the Orioles losing on Tuesday night was that I didn't have to go to Dallas on Thursday and Friday. So the less time I spend in Dallas, the happier it makes me. But I will be in Dallas for the game. I'm actually plotting a Maryland-Nebraska run. Maryland plays in Lincoln the day before the Ravens play in Dallas. So I'm trying to make that run, but it's college football. You know this from being a Penn Stater, right? I mean, the game might be at noon. It might be at 9 o'clock at night. I mean, who knows when they're going to play it. When I find out when they're going to play the game, I'll find out whether I get to go or not.
Well, and Nebraska seems to be decent again for the first time in a while.
Well, I need it to be a noon game. If it's a noon game, I get to go. If it's anything else, I don't get to go.
Then I think I think Nebraska, Maryland would have a tough time being a 3:30 start. But I mean, if they're 8-0, I don't think Nebraska's lost yet, have they?
Well,
I don't think they have.
Maryland hadn't lost until they visited the Happy Valley and left very unhappy. That was a bad loss on Saturday for the Terps.
That's the first. I was going to say it's the first good win for Penn State. So
yeah, Maryland got kind of shoved around, and I'd expect that. I really didn't.
No, and Penn State was kind of in desperate straits. They needed a win, and that helped. Well, you don't want to talk about Penn State. You don't care, but it was. I was surprised. I thought Maryland was hot, and Penn State was not, and I thought it was going to go right to the wire like it had a couple times lately, and I was as surprised as you were.
See, I get you on. I know you're a bit of a Penn State expert, so I thought I'd get some real analysis other than, you don't want to talk about Penn State. Well, I got things going on around here. I do. You're right. I mean, Tressman got fired. I got things happening here,
I know. I mean, Penn State's lucky that they missed Wisconsin, they missed Nebraska. When you're in this Big Ten, but there's 12 teams or 14 teams or how many teams there are, you don't play them all.
Yeah, some get Nebraska and some get Indiana. I get you.
Exactly. And this year, Penn State got a very, very soft schedule. So they could still turn out to be okay, but 2 weeks ago they almost lost at home to Minnesota. So who knows?
Yeah, Terps got a meat grinder after this Minnesota game, so hopefully they get through it. And who knows? I mean, the Pool and Weed Eater Bowl, Cherry Bowl, they still playing any of those? Let's become bowl eligible.
They
Tidy
play
bowl.
all of them. They play all of them.
Hey, man, as long as they get to go on a nice trip somewhere for Christmas and New Year's, that's all I can ask. Moose, love you, man. Appreciate you. I mean, one day our paths will cross. Probably Joe Elliott or, I don't know, Quiet Riot or something will be involved, right?
It could be. Mellencamp's up here this weekend, so I might be going down to see if I can scalp tickets for that. But
you know what? Toss me a text on that. I'm on the fence on that. I have things going on, as they say around here.
Well, you always have things going on. You are big time.
In a small fishbowl, man, like a guppy. See you later, brother.
Hey, have a good one.
All right, man. There he goes. I love him. I'm not afraid to admit the manly bromance we've had for 2 decades. He is Mark Messina, younger brother of Mike Messina, longtime host here at WNST, and my pal up in Montoursville, Pennsylvania, talking about sports, which I always like talking to Moose. So I hope you like listening as much as I like talking to Moose. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Get some inspiration out there at Planet of Triumphs. Lots of great stories out there about people making a difference. Last but never least, breaking news happens even at 9:33 on a Monday morning when Marty Morningweg takes over as the offensive coordinator and Mark Tressman is fired. You get it first on the WNST Tech Service. Promised you'll always be the smartest sports fan in your circle. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5 with the SSV on WNST. Reminder, C.J. Mosley will join us on Tuesday night at Buffalo Wild Wings in Owings Mills for the Bone Marrow Registry. And for There Goes My Hero, we are at Buffalo Wild Wings every Monday night for our best seat in the house, as well as our limo giveaway, $100 gift card. We got our wing eating challenge. It is the best seat in the house. Happens every Monday night at Buffalo Wild Wings in Owings Mills. But on Tuesday, CJ Mosley, one time, one show only. We wanted to get CJ out, say hello, and do a little thing for the Bone Marrow Registry, so we're doing that on Tuesday night. I'm Nestor. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. Now, we stream live on Facebook, live on YouTube on our WNSTV channel, but I'm a very available individual. You know that. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live all over the world. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports. Here, I would say, with the Buck Showalter sweepstakes last weekend, and of course the Terps getting their clocks cleaned up at Penn State on Saturday, and then the Ravens, for the second time in 4 years, losing to the Washington Redskins and then firing their offensive coordinator before 10 a.m. the next morning. Mark Trestman's out. Marty Morningwing is in. This guy has his own problems. He covers the New York Football Giants up in the great state of New Jersey, where I met Bruce Springsteen in Freehold, New Jersey 2 weeks ago. He is Tom Canavan, long time, 3 decades, been